Hello, and welcome to The Canadian Story, where we discuss what Canada is, what Canada could be, and what Canada should be. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Canadian Story. I'm pleased to have John Fallon with us here today. John, why don't you tell us a little bit, or our listeners, a little bit about yourself and kind of what makes you tick and what you do, what your passions are, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. You have 5 hours. Hello, everybody. My name is John Fallon. I started off as an actor. I graduated to script doctor, to then become a screenwriter, to then become a director and a producer by necessity, because nobody's going to push for your projects as hard as you. And I'm also the founder and still manager of Arrow in the Head, which is the horror section of Jobo.com. I've been doing that for 20 years. I was once a quote unquote film critic called The Arrow, although I wasn't a critic, just a guy with an opinion. And that's it. And I make a great omelet.
There you go. I love it. So, John, we ask every guest this. We want to hear from you on this, and then we want to get into kind of your story. What made you who you are, what life lessons you've learned. But before we do that, what do you love about Canada?
Oh, nature. It's nature. I'm a big nature person. I actually have a house in the Laurentians.
Nice.
And so a lot of hiking, a lot of climbing. In the winter, I love skiing, cross-country skiing. Not really downhill skiing, to be honest, I guess, because you just go down and it's feared the whole way through. Right. I like the physical challenge of cross-country skiing. And, of course, I love the Montreal Canadiens. Go Habs, go.
Yeah, tonight's a big night. They need this one, eh?
Oh, yeah, big time, big time. Come on, let's get that cup.
Yeah, man, I mean, if Canada could bring a cup back and it could be the Canadians to do it, that would be quite something.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. The nature of this country is kind of unparalleled also in its pristine nature, right? Like, we've kept a lot of it the way that it's been for a long time. And I mean, we've got a lot of it, which is a huge blessing. So I want to talk to you about your art, film, what drew you to it, what do you love about it, and what are the tools that are in your toolbox that you have used to become as successful as you are at it, and maybe some advice that you could give our listeners on how to achieve, excellence in something.
Oh, okay. Well, I could just start talking for 2 hours and, just ask me, okay, how I got into it. Growing up, film was my escape from life. I had difficult childhood, so it was my escape. So really at a young age, I just watch movies. And eventually, that's what I want to do. Sylvester Stallone in particular had a huge influence on me. I kind of saw him as a male role model. So, he wrote, he directed, he went for it.
You're following in the footsteps.
Exactly. He came from the slums, but through drive and determination, he went up, he trained. So I if he can do it, I can do it. Of course, I'm no Sylvester Stallone. That man's a legend. But he was a huge inspiration on me in terms of no matter where you come from and no matter how much money you have, rich family, poor family, if you give it everything you have and learn through your mistakes along the way, then anybody can make it. So that's what I got out of it.
Oh, I love that. Can you go into that a little bit more? Like, give us a time. Like, I love what you said. You make the mistakes and you learn from them. Give us a time in your early film journey where you feel like you made a mistake and what you learned from it.
Well, I didn't grow up with much money. Like, my family didn't have much money. And at a certain point in my early 20s, I got my first TV show. And it was a variety show. And so this was the first time that excuse me, there was banners in the subways with my face on it.
Right.
There was big paychecks. And it completely went to my head.
Right.
Completely went to my head.
Yep.
And,
well, how could it not, in a sense, right?
Well, you're 20 years old. For me, anything that has to do with ego or prima donna, behavior that I've seen even since from other people stems from insecurity. That's my opinion. For me, I look back Why was I acting like a big shot? Because I wasn't really insecure as to whom I was. So yeah, I made all my mistakes with that show. So I acted like a dick and a prima donna, if you will. And the show got canceled after one season. And I wound up going to work at a video store after to pay the bills.
Well, yes,
Incredible. Yes, yeah. Very humbling. So when you're at the video store, it was a Videotron. So orange shirt, making popcorn. And people come and rent videos and are like, weren't you on TV?
yeah, I was.
So that was very humbling. And it was a lesson I needed to learn. I'm happy I learned it early. And actually, just to continue in terms of the whole video store thing, that was the last job I ever had. I quit that job. No, I got fired from that job because I really was not acting very professional. I didn't care. And after that, I promised myself I will never have a 9-to-5 job again. I'm just going to maneuver and survive while trying to pursue my goals. And I've actually pulled it off.
Yeah. So what was it? Would you say it was the lesson that that's not the way to act? Why isn't that the way to act? What was it that you took from that? I loved what you said. It was humbling. And you didn't take it and be like, oh, I'm a loser. I'm done. I'm just giving up. You're like, no, I'm never going to work a job like this again. But also I've learned that I was using my dream job in the wrong way.
Well, I'm a firm believer in know thyself, meaning that, our defense mechanism is usually to point the finger outwards. So if your life's not doing well, you somehow end up blaming who's around you. Actually, if you look at it now with social media, everything, that's all people are doing.
Yeah,
is pointing
so
finger.
True.
Everybody's
true.
wrong. Everybody's crap, whatever. And early on, I knew I had serious emotional issues just from my childhood, but I managed to be able to look inwards and be able to say to myself, okay, John, what's wrong with you? And I wrote it down. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. Now, how do I fix it? And then I went about to fix it. So the same thing happened here. I looked once, the video store, I got canned, and I took a good look at myself. Okay, what was the mistakes that I made with that TV show? That. Why did I do it? Insecurity, How do I fix it? And that was it. Know thyself. If you're able to look at yourself and be brutally honest with yourself, because we have kind of a defense mechanism where we lie to ourselves. But if you're able to catch it, then you're able to fix it. Fix yourself. That's it.
So you leave the video store.
Yep.
You decide you're never working a 9-to-5 again. Walk us through how you went from the video store to where you are now. But more importantly, like, what are the moments along that path where you saw key decisions that you say, I made the right decision there, and that's how I made it through this step?
Well, I was auditioning as an actor. I was making money being a script doctor for local production companies. And my friend, Berj Garabedian, a.k.a. Joe Blow, had started his website, joeblow.com, in 1998. And in the year 2000, he came to me and he's like, because I'm a big horror movie guy, he's like, you're a good writer. And, this is like, before social media. This was at the beginning of the internet, really.
Yeah.
Horror movies, you know how to write. You want to start a subsection on my site? And I said, sure, why not? About horror movies.
Right.
I said, why not? For shits and giggles. I'll call it air on the head. Don't censor me. And I didn't think anything of it. I thought maybe my mom would read it, and that's it. But within about 3 months, it picked up. So then I kind of knew I was onto something, and that kind of launched. I went 3 years of film school. 2 years of film school, 3 years of acting school, theater school, 0 years of journalistic school. But for some reason, this arrow in the head thing just really picked up, and I had a new career path that I did not plan or really want.
Right.
But it was successful. I had to run with it. So I ran with it. And, that opened up doors, closed other doors as well, because you are what you're known for.
Yes.
So people didn't care that, I had 3 years of theater school or 2 years of film school. You're a critic.
Right.
But it was a good ride, a fun ride. We're still, kicking butt right now. And it opened up a lot of doors and gave me a lot of experiences. So that was a huge part of my life, yeah.
Yeah, that's so what would you say, like, do you remember any of the particular articles what was the moment that you knew it was going to take off and not just your mom reading it? Like, do you remember which article it was?
Yeah,
Or?
no, I don't remember specifically, but it's basically when I started off, yeah, again, this is the infancy of the internet, especially internet journalism. So I was pretty rough, if I didn't like a movie, and I was always trying to be funny at the same time. And my inspirations were Howard Stern, Andrew Dice Clay, Sam Kinison. So I was also politically incorrect. But then when filmmakers and studios started emailing me personally because they were offended or angry by what I wrote, then I'm like, wow, they actually care? Who cares? But, the traffic started to go up. And then, I started getting requests for autograph pictures. So I'm like, really? Okay. So it just kind of snowballed.
Yeah, so I love this fact that you made a decision. You're like, I'm not going to work a 9 to 5 again, and then you just opened yourself up to opportunities, like you said, that you didn't even want, that you didn't even necessarily, but you just said, okay, I'm going to go do it, and then this took you on this path for success. What was it about horror movies that you were so attracted to on a psychological level, and what would you say about horror movies that are so human, let's say?
Well, I think like most kids, horror movies, I became interested in them because the taboo factor, I wasn't allowed to watch them. So, my parents wouldn't let me watch horror movies. So I went out of my way to try to find ways to watch horror movies. Horror movies have the same, well, first of all, they could be just fun, but they could also be used much like sci-fi as a metaphor for, social issues or whatnot. I mean, People Under the Stairs, for example, look at it today, it's fairly relevant. I like horror movies in all their styles, from boobies and blood to, more cerebral to horror comedies or monster movies. I mean, there's so much to love within the genre.
Yeah, no, it's a very beloved genre, and I feel like it's more of a niche genre than like maybe your blockbuster or whatever. But it seems to like dig into a desire that humans have for emotion, right? And when we're not encountering a lot of things that drive fear into our souls, it gives us a safe place to experience that emotion outside of our day-to-day lives. It's like you said, it's a form of escapism, but it's a form of escapism into a very intense emotion. And you were analyzing this from what perspective? Like you said, you were trying to be funny about it, but you're also, like you said, you were hard on it. What were you hard on? What were you criticizing? Let's call it. Even
oh no, I would be tough on talent in the name of humor.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I didn't realize it then at the time that artists can be very sensitive.
Right.
So for me, actually, it's funny because when I started Arrow in the Head, and then I started having fans, and of course with fans comes people that hate your guts.
Right.
So I would read message boards about me, and people are talking about me and saying bad things, and it would piss me off. I'm not going to lie. At first, this is early on, and then at some point, I was talking with it was James Wan. He's the gentleman that directed Saw, Insidious, Conjuring, and I was with him at a party, and I was telling, it's weird. These people there was like a four-page thread on an Internet Movie Database message board when they had him debating my sexuality. Like, is he gay? Is he straight? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is so freaking weird. And I always remember James told me, he said, the fact that people are going out of their way to talk about you, people you don't know, says that you're on the right path. So once I kind of switched, and that helped me deal with that. Well, first of all, I stopped reading stuff about me because
right.
You don't need more negative energy.
No.
And but that kind of led me on the path where I am now, because I released my first feature a couple of years back, and of course I had negative reviews, but everything rolls over my back now. Nothing.
So tell us about that journey from writing these to directing your first feature. How did you get there? What is it like being a director? And particularly, how do you feel about the Canadian film scene, and what could be done to improve it? What is great about it? That kind of thing.
Well, I shot my first film, although I financed all of it. How can I say this? I've had a hard time in Canada. to move up. The English Canadian scene is not really big on horror movies. They're not big on action movies. They're not big on sci-fi movies. They're not big on the kind of movies that I personally like to make. They like dramas.
Right.
They love them dramas and them comedies. That's pretty much it. And those are two fields that I'm not really into. My film, The Shelter, which is I would say, with Michael Pare of Eddie and the Cruisers and Streets of Fire, is a drama with horror conventions to it and a deep kind of like a spiritual undercurrent, if you will. So basically it's pretentious, yes.
Right.
Oh, yes, it's very pretentious, yes. But it's my first film. You make the film that wants to be made. And, everybody was telling me at the time, John, you're an idiot. You're popular because you're a horror movie personality. Why don't you make a slasher?
Right.
Why don't you make something that's more mainstream, cut and dry? But it wasn't the movie that wanted to get made. So I made it. Nobody would finance it because it was too weird. I couldn't get any grants from Canada. So finally, I got to a crossroad where I had everything set up. I had in Louisiana. We shot it in Louisiana. I had the crew. I had the location. I had my lead, Michael Pare, locked. All I was missing was the money. So I got to the how can I say it? Do or die moment. Either I let everything go because I couldn't find the money, or I take my 5 credit cards, my line of credit, all my savings, and finance it. And that's
right.
Because I figured I was already in debt. Well,
right.
What's 100,000 more, and I'd rather be in debt more and have a movie that I could then use as a calling card than be in debt less and have nothing. That was my rationale. And trust me, after I made
and how
movie,
was that? I want to know what that experience was like for you. The pressure that was it extreme pressure, or was it just that attitude where you're like, oh, you know what? I'd rather have the movie.
Yeah, no, no, it wasn't pressure. I've always, even with the TV show, when the TV show got canned, I'm the moron. Again, I was 20, so we're all morons at that age that wasted that money. I would walk in a bar and say, rounds for everybody. I was that guy going to, on trips, living here, living there. I've always been the type of person that on my deathbed, I don't want to say, well, at least I'm not in debt. I want to say I lived and I achieved or gave it everything I have, do or die trying, the goals I wanted to achieve. That's more important to me than debt, which is really a man-made concept. Money is what? A piece of paper with a number on it. Is it really worth it? It's worth something because with it you could buy stuff and you could do stuff, but experience and achieving what you want to do for me is more important. So even after The Shelter, and I was dimeless.
Right.
Seriously, like ramen, back to ramen noodles, are they called?
Yeah,
those hot water crap at the dollar store. But I had a movie. So, and the movie was a movie. It's a long journey, a movie. It's like 3 years, 4 years with you, from inception to shoot, to post, to selling it, to festivals, to, all that stuff. So it gave me purpose. And with that movie, the only reason people are interested in me right now and giving me a bigger budget for my next movie is because of that movie. So if I didn't make that movie, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
So there's 2 things I want to touch on that. The first and the most important, I think, is you said it wasn't it was the movie that needed to be made.
Yeah.
Talk about that. What does that concept mean to you? And because I've heard this before, it's like I was recently listening to Jordan Peterson's podcast where he's talking to the director from Braveheart, Wallace, and he says, that this movie came to him and he had to write it, and he was surprised by the ending. Now, I think for a lot of people who are not artists, they don't understand how that's a possible way of thinking, right? They're like, oh, you plan it out, you have all the steps. But you're saying, no, I had to make this movie. It was the movie that needed to be made. Yeah. What does that mean to you, and why are you saying that?
It's where, you know what? It's the same concept as a painter with an empty canvas. And he looks at it and then he takes the brush and he starts. And then at the end of it, it was the painting that came from him that needed to be made. A movie is many steps, way more steps than that. But in principle, it's really the same thing. And I guess when I say it's the movie that needed to be made is that, yes, I felt like the painter with the canvas. And I completely set aside anything else but this artistic need to express this movie. I didn't take business into account. I didn't take the fact, maybe I should do a slasher. I didn't take the fact that the film is experimental to some degree. It is pretentious. I'll admit it too. But fine, that's a movie I wanted to make. I wanted to make a pretentious, vague, audience makes up their own mind as to what's really happening type of film. And in all honesty, in everything I've done, it is the only film that I got, because it has to do with an alcoholic, a man who should be seeking redemption but is not seeking it. It's the only thing I've ever done where people have contacted me saying that either it inspired them to quit drinking, or it inspired them to go back to their faith, or it made them think about their own lives and their own quote unquote sins, if you will. Everything else I've made is just, guns, boobies, and which nothing wrong with them.
Right.
I have nothing wrong with that, which is fun. But this is the only thing I've ever done where I felt rewarded in a different way.
I like that you were true to yourself and to your art, and you produced something that's actually had a real impact on people's lives.
Yes. Yeah.
So for those who haven't seen it, tell us what's the spiritual I love that where you're talking about it's helped people overcome addictions that makes people die in horrible ways. I don't think people understand how dangerous alcohol is, right? I had a friend recently who died at 41, and they were they were bleeding out in their apartment by themselves out of their anus. Right?
Wow.
That's a horrific thing to say, but that's that's the path that alcoholism can take you to. Yeah. What was it about alcoholism that you wanted to talk about, but also what was it about this idea that humans can overcome or should overcome? Because it seems to be the message that you're giving, right? Is that we should overcome that part of ourselves.
Oh, wow. It's, you'd have to see the film, and I don't want to really tell people what they should get out of the film.
Right.
Because the film is made in a way where who you are, all films, who you are, you'll get something different from it. Who you are as an individual, your past, how you were brought up, whether you have an addiction problem or not, you'll get something different. What's your religion? But this film in particular was created exactly for that. So whoever you are, horror fans, a lot of horror fans liked it. And non-horror fans liked it. Some people just took it at face value. It's a mindfuck with horror scenes. Other people saw what I was trying to say more on the spiritual aspect. Other people saw it more as a drama. So it's different. The film right now is everywhere. It's on Amazon. It's been everywhere it came out in 2016.
Right.
So it's Amazon Prime, iTunes, all the usual suspects. And basically, the log line, if you will, just for the people that don't know of it, it's about a homeless man who's come back to his hometown, and where he did a lot of bad things to his wife. And he's a man that drinks 24/7 because he's, I guess, unconsciously trying to kill himself.
Right.
And one night, he's looking for a place to sleep, and he thinks he found a lucky break when there's a house there and the door's open and there's lights, and he's like, oh, okay, I got a place. He comes in. Is there anybody there? Nobody's there. He makes himself at home. There's food in the fridge. There's alcohol. He's in heaven. And eventually weird things start to happen. So he decides to leave, but the house won't let him leave.
Oh, right.
So then you find out, or you don't find out, all depending what you get out of it. Why? What's happening to him, and why is the house putting him through this ordeal? So I had somebody say, there's a producer that said it's Bad Lieutenant meets Last Temptation of Christ.
Oh, wow. There's a combination.
You don't hear that one every day, but I took it as a huge compliment. And I had somebody else that said it's like the Book of Job on acid. So,
wow. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
So it's that kind of movie, so there's definitely a biblical undercurrent to it. How about that?
Right.
Yeah. That's very fascinating. I know what my wife and I are doing tonight.
Yeah. Nice. Enjoy.
Yeah, I'm going to watch it as well. I'm very interested in this idea that you've been involved in this industry and you're like, but nothing else you did was like that, right? Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because like you said, there's nothing wrong with that. You've enjoyed that. But when you decided to make your piece, you wanted to say something important. What do you think it was that brought you to that point? Was it your own faith? Was it a desire to have an impact on people? What was it? Because like you said, nothing else you've done was like that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely well, look, in everything that you write, you're in it. Pieces of you are in it.
Yes.
I wrote American Muscle, which is a revenge movie, an action revenge movies with boobies across the board. When they hired me for that one, they said, make it as smutty and violent and politically incorrect as you can. So I did, and then they pulled me back. I just
they're like, oh, this is too far.
Like,
we should not have told them to go that far.
Exactly. So they pulled me back, and the movie itself actually pissed a lot of people off. But it's fine. It's that kind of movie. But with The Shelter, there was a lot of me, I guess, when I was a teenager, the anger and the frustration and the violence that I felt. And then in my early 20s, like I said, I had a rough life. So it takes a while to process all that and come to a place of peace with it. And a lot of the chaos that I had during those trying times are in The Shelter. And also I'm Catholic myself. I was grappling with my faith a lot. So that's also in The Shelter. And funnily enough, The Shelter itself, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but helped me regain my faith.
Wow. Could you talk about that a little bit? I'd love to. Don't talk about what it was in The Shelter, but talk about regaining your faith, because one of the things that Zach and I talk a lot about is how we are kind of existing right now in this culture that doesn't have meaning. Right? Mm-hmm. We're in a world bereft of a direction. There's no vision for the future, and there's no this is why you're here. And so people are clinging to these group identities, almost as like life rafts, right? Where they're like, well, this is all I have to moor myself to reality, because I don't what means anything. So like you in your artistic work reintegrated a form of meaning into your life. What was that like, and what has it done for you now?
Well, look, faith is a very personal thing. And the way that, man, this is going to be a tough one. I was raised Catholic, go to church, blah, blah, blah. And then I had a big struggle with what Scripture says and what men are doing with it. So
right, yes,
like using the church as a front for child abuse and what happened to the indigenous people. That's or even with what happened in the United States, people using Scripture as a reason to hate or to judge or to be racist. So I had a really hard time coming to a place of peace, that there's Scripture and there's what man does with it. And through The Shelter, what happened with The Shelter is I went deep into theology. So I read outside of, the Bible and everything. I read really obscure stuff. And the more you dig, the more you find. And the more I found, the more fascinated I became with it. Actually, funnily enough, my next film is about the Knights Templars.
Oh, nice. I love that. Yeah, that's a very interesting story. What happened to them?
them?
It's set after the Second Crusade, when they lost the Second Crusade. And it's people here in Hollywood have compared it to Unforgiven, but with Templars. So that's what I'm working. But The Shelter led me there. Because after The Shelter was done, and I could talk to you guys for hours, the weird stuff that happened while I was writing the script and during post-production, that also kind of made me, okay, yeah, there's something going on here. Now I get it.
Right.
Me comprende. There was a lot of weird stuff where you can't deny that there's something going on. It led me into a fascination with discovering the truth. There you go. That's the easiest way I could put it. So I started reading, just, it's a passion. And now because of Heretic, that's the name of the movie, it's also work. So I've been researching the Templars for years now. And anything that has to do with theology, like right now I'm reading Gnostic Gospels.
Right, yep.
Yeah, so I'm fascinated by it. And that helped me regain my faith in the sense that I'm taking what works for me. I'm not really going by what man says. I'm going by what I discover and what I believe is the truth. There you go. That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
All right.
If you don't mind, what is something weird that happened to you during the writing or post-production that made you feel like there was something else going on?
Okay. I'll give you, it's on the DVD of The Shelter. I did say the story on my director commentary, but I'll say it here. I'll try to make it the short version because it's a long story. But I was living in downtown Montreal, and The Shelter is the longest time I ever took to write a script because I had the initial premise, the setup, which I came up with the idea. I was coming back from a hockey game, the Habs, ironically enough. Go Habs, go Habs,
go Habs, go.
And there was a man on the ground in the snow, and he was begging for change. So I gave him a couple bucks, and I kept walking on. And then I thought, who is this guy? How did he get there? And where's he going to go tomorrow? And when I got home, I wrote those 3 things. And that was the seed that started the script. And then I came with my ending. And then for 3 years, I thought about it because I didn't know the middle section. I really could not break it. I tried and tried and tried. So I was living downtown Montreal, 4th floor, an apartment, and I had a flood. Like a pipe blew in the bathroom, and I had a flood. So I had like really ankle deep of water with turds floating around. Oh, it really was disgusting.
Oh no!
All my movie posters I'd collected got ruined.
No.
So I called my landlord and I tell him, there's a flood. He's like, okay, we're going to send a plumber this week. So on a Thursday, I think on Tuesday, actually, it doesn't matter which day. On one day, so the plumber shows up, knock, 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 and I'm like in water, working on my computer, doing research, trying to reading theological stuff online, trying to find something that'll spark an idea for the middle section. This Shelter. So duck, duck, duck. This Asian gentleman comes in, obviously a plumber, and he's like, you got a problem? Yeah. He goes and fixes the pipes, and I'm at my computer in the living room, and at some point I feel a presence behind me, and it was him. He was kind of like looking over my shoulder. He's like, are you a Christian? I'm like, yeah, but it's not about that. I'm just doing research for a script, So he takes a pen and he writes down a couple of email addresses. Not email addresses, I mean web addresses. He's like, you should look at those sites. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. It was like obscure, like Christian sites.
Right.
Like, cool, thank you very much. And he leaves. So the next day, more water came out.
What?
Yeah, and I got really pissed. So I stormed downstairs and I tell my landlord, because he was downstairs at his office, I'm like, dude, the plumber you sent yesterday fucked it up even more. There's even more water now, man. What the hell? And
and you're just living in this water right now.
Exactly, with turds and everything.
Oh.
And the landlord says, the plumber didn't come yet. He's coming tomorrow. Exactly. So I'm like, wait a minute. I go, dude, there was an Asian gentleman at my house, dressed like a plumber yesterday. I mean, double check. Come on, don't mess with me. So he double checks. No. He calls the company. Nope, they didn't send anybody. And to this day, I have no idea who this guy was. So the real plumber, the real quote unquote plumber, came the next day and did fix it properly. And through those 3 websites that this gentleman gave me, I did find the seed that gave me
the middle
to finish the script. Yeah. So
that's incredible.
That's incredible.
So that's one. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, there's more?
Oh, yeah.
Hit us with another.
Yeah, hit us with another one.
I'll give you one more. When we're doing post-production in Louisiana, my editor and I, Bobby Hallbrook, oh God, we're having a hard time. The movie would not export. No matter what we would do, it would not retain the color correction. It would not retain anything. And then one night, it was like 2, 3 in the morning. We kept trying. And then the computer went, doom.
Oh.
And then 6 across. And, I'm in Louisiana, the South. So my editor is very Christian.
Right.
He just gets up and runs out. And I'm like looking at this, 6. Okay, this is really fucked up. So I go outside. He's smoking a cigarette. I'm like, what's going on, Bobby? He's like, John, God doesn't want us to make this movie. And I'm like, I remember my answer. I'm like, dude, it was all sixes, man. I don't think it's God messing with us right now.
Right.
You know? I think it's the other guy.
Right.
You know? So that freaked us out. And then we had to contact DaVinci, the company that was doing the software we're using for color correction called DaVinci. And they found an AI that was in our footage, just really weird. Like, so basically there was some artificial intelligence that somehow wound up in our files that was controlling everything to our dismay. So it was I never heard anything like that.
No, I've never heard of anything like that either.
Very odd, very odd. So yeah.
So these experiences are happening, and you said that they made you be like, there must be something going on. From the stories you've told us, it's pretty obvious that something's going on.
There was a weird energy with that movie.
Yeah,
you know, I've done sci-fi action. You don't get that stuff, but when you do stuff, I've noticed with The Shelter, definitely noticed when you do anything to do with God or spirituality, or it feels like almost, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Maybe you attract stuff, or I don't know.
Yeah. Wow.
I certainly did.
Yes.
Attract stuff.
You did. You attracted both seemingly the good and the bad.
Exactly. But the movie came out, and you know, it's although it's hilarious because I got over like 60 positive reviews and maybe like 3 or 4 negative reviews, but it's rated like 3 point something on Internet Movie Database, because you know it's more of an art film. And when it came out in whatchamacallit, what are those? Like vending machines that you rent DVDs.
Oh yeah, like the Netflix used to put them up in stores and
well,
stuff.
That was the beginning of
Redbox,
wasn't it?
Red boxes. Yeah.
Once the film came out on Redbox, which is, I guess, where basically everybody thought, oh, I'm gonna rent a cool horror movie, and then it's some like artsy spiritual Christian thing. That's when it collapsed. But you know, I'm proud of it. I'm happy with it.
Well, that's an interesting question. So as someone who makes art, you make it and then say it's criticized, right? And that's the vulnerability of making something and putting it out in the world. Yeah. You've already talked about how you'd already been kind of prepared for that. Your character had been built up. You knew what it was like to be criticized, people talking about your sexuality. You've already been through that. So how would you say that helped prepare you for that?
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you know, through Arrow in the Head on Joe Blow, you know, especially in the beginning, I would get random emails, kill yourself, you suck, you're shit, all this stuff. Right. You get this for years and years and years. At some point, you develop an armor for it. So by the time I directed The Shelter and the reviews came out, and when, you know, it was funny. I remember one day I read one review, it's like a masterpiece, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the other review, John Fallon, a piece of shit, he's a hack, you should never look at a camera again. And I'm like, well, that's what it's all about.
Right. Yeah. You know? You got it both sides.
That's what it is. You know, I'm okay with it. You know, you create something, you put it out there. If you're secure in who you are, then it doesn't matter. And what you've created, if I'm happy with it, that's it. If everybody hates it, well, that's how it goes. That's fine. I'm okay with that.
So how do you steel yourself to the point of being like, I always call that an internal locus of control. It means that external stimuli are not affecting your emotional well-being, because like most people wouldn't be able to handle putting something out in the world and having it just crapped on. They would like collapse under that pressure. But you built up the character to be able to handle that. And like one of the things you've been saying is like everyone on social media is a critic now. Like everyone's just kind of like blasting out there. But they don't seem to be building that internal fortitude to be able to take the heat themselves. Are there any other examples in your life of how you were prepared for that?
No, not really. I mean, you know, I when I went to film school, I minored in psychology because I wanted to understand the human psyche to fix myself.
Right.
Because I knew, you know, because of the tough childhood, you know, I had a damaged psyche. I was, you know, I was insecure. I had self-esteem issues and all that stuff. So I took Psych 101 and fixed myself to the best of my ability. So I truly believe that if you fully know who you are and you are fully comfortable with who you are, creating something and having people shit on it is no different than finding out that friends are saying bad things about you. But if you know who you are and you know what you're worth, just like you're proud of what you created and you know what it's worth, the noise doesn't matter. It doesn't hit you. Even recently, somebody was saying that to me. Said, I heard so-and-so said that you think you're an asshole. I'm like, that's fine. I don't really don't care.
Right.
Yeah, I really don't care. Maybe he's right. Maybe I am an asshole to him.
Right.
So
as an artist who creates, and did you, growing up, did you always want to make film?
Pretty much, yeah.
So I have a similar story in the sense that I grew up wanting to make music, and now I work in the music industry.
Nice.
Have you found that you've come to a place of some amount of disillusionment with what you do because you now do what you love? How do you marry doing what you love and what used to be a hobby with what you now use to survive?
It was never a hobby for me. Yeah, it was always, since I was 13 or 14, I guess, this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to do. And I remember my family were like, come on, it's a dream, blah, blah, blah. My dad's a mechanic, be more like your dad, blue collar, I'm like, no, I'm going to make it. And that's it. Not for you, but for me. And I'd rather go after my goals and die failing, but I never quit, than quit. And then on my deathbed, I was like, I should have tried. I was really, because of my childhood was so difficult, I got cheated out of a lot of life. So by the time I kind of got my shit together, I became obsessed with, number one, catching up on life, which I did. Number two, experiencing life as much as I can. And number three, really going for my goals at all costs. At all costs. It doesn't matter. Nothing will stop me. And I got hit. Trust me, the film industry is a weird beast in the sense that I came at it, especially initially, from an artist's point of view, but it's business. And it's shit business. It's crooked business. It is bikers make the film industry look honest because at least they have a code. They have a moral code. Okay. I've known a lot of bikers over my years, and I would trust them more than people in the film industry. People in the film industry. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So that was actually the hardest thing for me to adjust to. Because I'm a very straightforward person. I'm not really good. I don't like BS, but I'm in such the wrong business because there's nothing straightforward about it, and it's all about BS. So it took me a lot of years where, oh no, you can't just take a guy and put his head in the wall because he fucked you over. This is the film industry. You can't do that.
You can't do that.
You sue him, with money you don't have. Yeah.
So how did you navigate that?
It's just self-discipline, just learn, you asked me before advice, young people that want to make it in the film industry. And there's one thing I learned, whether you're an actor, a screenwriter, composer, anything, talent is secondary. Who you know, how well you network is primary. I thought it was about talent. It's not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, isn't that true for everything? I know you've realized that in the music industry. I'm in politics, or have been in politics for most of my life, which is also a ruthless blood sport.
Yes, I hear.
But it's interesting, like that everyone seems to eventually, once they reach a certain point of excellence, say the same thing, which is go out there and get to know as many people as you can. Now, I've always said that there's a big difference between networking and authentic friendship. Like there's the friendships where you go to these people and you say, I want you to succeed, and I'm going to sacrifice something for you to succeed. And they say the same to you. And that's a real beautiful friendship, but also a really valuable network, right? As people that you actually care about. Could you give an example of someone reaching out to you and giving you help that actually that maybe other people can emulate, but also maybe an example of how you paid that forward later on?
Well, I actually, I'm in California right now, and I was in Arizona before, acting in a Western. For me, the film industry, this is what I've learned as to how I gauge people is, and it's actually really the rule of life, really, in whether you're in the film industry or not. in an office is I look at what people do. I don't listen to what they say.
Ah, yes.
So the Western I was in, the star of it, Alexander Nevsky, who's also a co-producer on it. During the pandemic, the pandemic was rough on a lot of people. I was one of them. I was stuck in the woods of Canada. He was stuck in his apartment in Beverly Hills. And we just talked. And, he was doing a Western, sent me the script. I read it as a favor. I liked the guy. And gave him my points. And, and at some point he said, John, when this is over, I'm going to fly you down, put you up. I'll give you a role in that Western. And I've heard that a million times.
Right.
Well, not about a Western per se.
No,
but where
people have said, I'll give you a role in it.
Yeah. So, but, with Alexander, it happened. He kept his word. And for me, and with that, especially within this industry, he gained my respect. So every time somebody tells me something within this industry and then actually keep their word, or even it happened fairly recent, last year on a project where a big star tried to steal my project away from me because he wanted to direct it himself. And my producer had a choice to either throw me under the bus or tell the big star to go F himself and support me instead, which is what he did. So with this industry, people will throw their mothers at the wolves to move forward because it's so difficult and there's no loyalty and there's no trust and there's no ethics and there's no morals. It's the devil's playpen here, the film industry, in my opinion. So when you have people that keep their word, when you have people that do the opposite of what you would expect, these are people you keep.
Yes.
You keep around you, especially to be able to thrive in such a appalling environment.
Yeah.
In my useless opinion, of course.
No, I think that's an incredibly valuable insight. Watch what people do, not what they say. And then when people, especially in industries that it's, like you said, that there's so much backstabbing going on, those are the people that you want to move forward with. So,
well, you know what? How about this? When you're high, like at some point I was really high up with one project and everybody was my brother.
Right.
Brother, John, brother. But then it tanked at the finish line. And suddenly I didn't have as many brothers.
Right.
So where's brother him, brother that? Oh, phew, they're all gone. But the people that stayed, okay, duly noted.
Yeah. It's a good way to learn those things. So I have two more questions before we wrap up. Sure. The first is, you mentioned Sylvester Stallone and how you admire him. Who is someone right now up and coming that you want to pump their tires and be like, this is the real deal?
Whoa. Up and coming. I don't know. I keep looking backwards. I'm still watching Schwarzenegger movies, Stallone movies. I'm still up and coming. Who's really top of my head?
What do you think of that Canadian director that did Arrival and is doing Dune?
Yes. No, what's his name? Denis Villeneuve. Yeah.
Denis
actually, funnily enough, I interviewed him on that variety show.
Oh, really?
Oh, no way.
Wow.
Before he became, Denis Villeneuve. He was just starting out when I interviewed him. No, I think he's fantastic. I mean, I loved Arrival. He did Prisoners as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was that him?
Yeah, it was. Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And he did he's done a couple, but mostly sci-fi. Yeah. I found Arrival to be just stunning.
I thought Arrival was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and a psychological thriller too, right?
Definitely. And I'm excited for Dune. But I'm still stuck on the old guys, I'm still, Eastwood.
Well, you admire the masters, right?
Yes. Yes.
So who would be, let's say, your pantheon? I have a lot of film buff friends. Who would be your pantheon of masters? Like Scorsese?
So directors?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Scorsese, Lynch, Eastwood, early Argento, Dario Argento. He was a genius. Hitchcock. John Woo, early stuff. And the list can, Stanley Kubrick. And the list can go on and on. I mean,
right. So
names,
what would you say separates the master of these crafts from everyone else who's doing it?
I can only speak from a personal, like Mel Gibson, for example, is a director that really For me, what separates is how it makes me feel. So when I watch Apocalypto, when I watched Hacksaw Ridge, when I watched Passion of the Christ, the way these films made me feel is on a whole other level than, say, other films.
Right.
Hacksaw Ridge destroyed me.
Yeah, Hacksaw Ridge is amazing.
Hacksaw Ridge destroyed me. Just
me too.
leveled me.
Me too.
I was just like,
me too. I still remember the score. When he's saving everybody in the last act. Dun, 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 dun. I was like, oh my god! And the visuals and wow, what a master, Mel Gibson. What a master. So it's how it makes me feel. How it makes me feel in terms of content. How it makes me feel in terms of audiovisual aesthetics. A film is like a giant painting, and so many things come into play to make it the whole that it is. From the music to the visuals to the camera angles to the acting to the cinematography, the lighting. All of it comes together to create something that'll either grab you and really move you or leave you cold. So the ones that grab me and really move me, like Passion of the Christ or Hacksaw Ridge or even Bridges of Madison County, those are the ones that I put up there. Yeah.
I love that. So one of the things I love to talk about with artists is every art medium has something that it can do that no other art medium can, right? There's things you could do with a comic book that you can't do with a novel. There's things you could do in a novel that you can't do in a song. There's things in a song you can't do in a movie. What is the thing about film? Like, just what is the core art of a film as a director that you're trying to capture that no other medium can capture? Because lots of mediums can give you emotions. You can cry reading a book. You can feel anger from a song. But there's something about film that film can only do. If you had to put your finger on it, what is it?
Again, I can only speak from personal experience. For me, film can do a bunch of things at the same time. If you see a painting, for example, you listen to a song. For me, a song will make me happier, make me sad, or a painting, I'll look at it and I'll get what I get out of it. But with a film, it could entertain me, educate me, enlighten me, inspire me, move me, make me think. It does a bunch of things all at the same time. So, a movie like Hacksaw Ridge, for example, it's just the story, and it's as you guys know, I'm sure it's based on the true story. So right away, it's based on the true story, and I actually read the true story, which is even more fantastic than the film in terms of what this gentleman accomplished and what he pulled off because of his faith. That right there, you have it. Put on top of that the music, which is moving, and the visuals, which are arresting, which are every frame is a work of art. Every frame is a painting. The performances and everything. So a movie could hit you from a lot of different angles all at the same time. So that's what I think that makes it different.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Painting,
that is awesome.
Comic book. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time here, but I guess if you have any last thoughts that you'd like to share with the listeners, I'm really appreciative of you coming on here.
Thank you for having me.
We also love here on the Canadian Story. We want to elevate Canadians and show what a talented country we are and how much we have to offer. Because I feel like so often Canadians kind of downplay our excellence, and it's that's why so many people leave. But
we should be more arrogant. We should be more arrogant.
we should be pumping our tires more. Exactly.
Exactly.
So I guess final thoughts, and also where can people find you, and maybe a reminder of your upcoming movie and where they can find Shelter.
Okay, final thoughts. I just want to say to everybody listening that no matter where you're from, no matter how you were raised, you have one life. It's on you to make it what you want it to be. Of course, there's going to be obstacles. There's going to be naysayers, people putting you down. You overcome the obstacles, you ignore the naysayers, and you keep going for it. Because one day we're all going to die. And what we've done with that one life is what we're going to look back on. So if I could make it from, incredibly humble beginnings to where I am now, anybody can. So That's final thing. The Shelter right now is on Amazon Prime, Amazon. It's on DVD as well. It's on iTunes. It's on Hulu. It's on Tubi. It's pretty much everywhere. The usual suspects. I have another film I produced called Sweet Pain. Another really kind of a mix of drama and giallo, which is the Italian horror subgenre. Right. Sweet Pain is also on Amazon Prime, Amazon on DVD, and Walmart, and blah blah blah. And I think that's it. I mean, everything else is in the works. So when I get closer,
but this up and coming movie, what are you most excited about with it?
Heretic.
You're fully in this right now. You're like in the guts of it. What is bringing you joy from this?
Look at this tattoo.
Oh, there you go.
Crusader cross. Okay.
Yes.
Before the pandemic, we were about to go shoot.
Right.
We were like inches away, and then the pandemic and we were shooting in Armenia. And where our locations is where the war that just happened in Armenia. So all the locations been locked for 2 years.
Obstacles.
Go bye because and it's almost ironic. Again, like I said, spiritual stuff is weird. My Heretic is about Templars who go back home after losing the Second Crusade to Islam, and now our locations are gone after the Christian Armenians lost the territory to the
Muslims.
Muslims.
Right.
So, you can't make this shit up. So for me, I was going to tattoo this. This is the Crusader cross, by the way, a Jerusalem cross, right before shooting. But during the pandemic, and obviously I eventually found out, okay, we're not shooting anytime soon. I said, fuck it. I'm just going to have it tattooed now because that's it. That movie is going to be my crowning achievement. I'm really excited for it.
Nice. Well, thank you for coming on. And also thank you for having such a commitment to your art, which is producing, obviously, people stopping drinking, people coming back to their faith. And that's what great art does, is when you're authentic, you're going to get the haters. But I would imagine that having those people come to you and say, this changed my life, is worth every single hater.
And easily. The haters is just in one ear, out the next. But when you get people, you actually influence them or inspire them to change their life for the better, there's no greater gift, really.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you for listening to The Canadian Story. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at The CAD Story. That's The CAD Story. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. Let's work together to remind Canadians how great their country is.